Hey guys, Mr. Yaisley here. So we're on to lesson number 4 in chapter 4, all about writing linear functions. And so in lesson number 4, we're going to talk specifically about writing linear functions. Before we've been writing linear equations in slope-intercept form. Well, now we're going to do the same idea. We're going to write linear functions in that slope-intercept form. So a couple things I want to draw out before we get started on these examples. As we've been working with this idea of y equals mx plus b, right? Where the m was the slope and the b was the y-intercept. And we talked last chapter about how this is the same thing, but if it's a function, we just replace the y with f of x. So it would still be equal to mx plus b. It means the exact same thing. Now, if that is true, then what we can actually say here is that f of x is equal to y. And the reason that that is really important, because they both are equal to mx plus b, that means they have to be equal to each other. And the reason that is really important is because that helps us understand that when they give us something in a function form, like an f of x, right, it's really like the same thing as y. And so what we're seeing here when we look at these functions is that they've given us here f of x equals y. That's really what f of 0 equals 10 means, right? The 0 is in place of the x, the 10 is in place of the y. So we want to keep that in mind. So let's take a look at example A. It told us to write a linear function f with the values f of 0 equals 10 and f of 6 equals 34. Well, as I just mentioned, this is 0 right here is really in place of the x, and this 10 right here is really in place of the y. So these are actually ordered pairs, and I'm going to write it like that. So I'm going to turn this into an ordered pair. Well, ordered pairs are x comma y. So my x value was 0, and my y value is 10. Same idea here, the 6 is in place of the x, so my x coordinate is 6, and that's my input, and then my output when I have 6, it is 34, so the y coordinate is 34. So we've now got two ordered pairs. Well, once we have our two ordered pairs, then we have what we need to figure out the slope of this function, and the slope, again, is going to use m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That process is no different than what we've been talking about, so we're still going to use that slope formula to figure this out. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to label these. I'm going to call this one x1, y1. I'm going to call this x2, y2. And then I'm going to plug that information in. So I've got m equals, my y2 was 34. Minus my y1 was 10, all over x2 was 6, and my x1 was 0. And then I need to solve that down. So 34 minus 10 is 24, and 6 minus 0 is 6. And then I've got 24 over 6, which means 24 divided by 6, which is just 4. So my slope is 4. Then I need to figure out my y-intercept, so I've got to figure out this b here. So a reminder, when we look at ordered pairs, if one of them has a 0 for the x-coordinate, that is the y-intercept. And sure enough, 0, 10. So there is my y-intercept. And remember, with y-intercept, we only use the y-coordinate, so I'm just going to use this 10 right here, and I'm going to plug that information in. So m equals, my slope equals 4, my y-intercept is going to be equal to 10. It's a positive 10. So now I need to write it. Now instead of writing y equals mx plus b, I'm going to write f of x equals mx plus b. So I've got f of x equals, my m was 4, slope was 4, times x, and then plus b, my b was 10, my y-intercept was 10, it's positive, so that's going to be plus 10. So the final linear function for this is f of x equals 4x plus 10. All right. Well, now let's take a look at our example B here and work through it. So example B says write a linear function f with the values f of 0 equals -4 and f of 3 equals 8. Well, first thing I want to do is I want to turn these functions into ordered pairs. So remember, this is in place of the x, this is in place of the y based on the f of x equals y. So really I have an ordered pair of 0, -4. Then over here I have an ordered pair of 3, 8. Because again, this is in place of the x, this is in place of the y. So now I've got my 2 points, so now I need to go in and use that slope formula. So first thing I'm going to do is label x1, y1, x2, y2. Then I'm going to plug that information in. So I've got m equals y2 is 8 minus y1 is -4. So remember, always put the minus first. Then if you've got a negative, put it in parentheses. x2 is 3 minus x1, which is 0. All right, well now I've got my information in, so now I got to go in and solve it for the slope. So 8 minus -4, that double negative becomes a plus, so 8 plus 4 is 12. Over 3 minus 0 is 3, and then 12 over 3, that is 12 divided by 3, which is also equal to 4. All right. Well then, now that I've got my slope here, I need to figure out my y-intercept. So I'm going to go back to my ordered pairs and see if one of them has a 0 for the x-coordinate. This one does right here, so this is my y-intercept. And remember, with the y-intercept, we only use the y-coordinate, so my y-intercept is just -4. Well, now I've got my 2 pieces of information I need here to write my linear function, so I'm going to go in and do that using f of x equals mx plus b and plugging the information in for the m and the b. So I start with f of x equals, my m is 4 times x, and then plus my b. Well, my b is -4, so instead of plus -4, I'm just going to write -4. So f of x equals 4x minus 4. All right, well, I'd encourage you to try example C on your own, so pause the video, then when you're done, unpause and check your answer with mine. So I'm going to move this up just a tad here, and now we're going to go on to example C. So write a linear function f with the values f of 0 equals 9 and f of 8 equals 7. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start by writing my ordered pairs from these functions. So my first ordered pair, because remember this is x and this is y, is 0, 9. My second ordered pair, because again this is x and this is y, right, is 8, 7. So there's my 2 points to work with. So now I need to go in and I need to label them so I can use my slope formula. So I'm going to call this one x1, y1. I'm going to call this one x2, y2. All right? And now I need to plug them in. So I get m equals y2, which is 7, minus y1, which is 9, over x2, which is 8, minus x1, which is 0. And that is equal to, well, 7 minus 9 is -2, over 8 minus 0 is 8. Well, I know that that can be simplified down because they have a common factor of 2, so when I divide them both by 2, I get -1 over 4, because -2 divided by 2 is -1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So my slope is -1/4. Well, then I need to figure out my y-intercept. So back to my 2 ordered pairs here. Which one of them has an x value of 0? Well, that would be the first one here. So my y-intercept is 0, 9. And remember, for y-intercept, we only really need the y-coordinate, which is +9. So y-intercept of 9. Well, last thing we need to do is put it into that linear function form. So I'm going to start with f of x equals, my m is negative 1/4 times x, right? And then my y-intercept is 9, and it's positive, so that would be plus 9. So f of x equals negative 1/4 x plus 9 is my final linear function. All right, well, if you have any additional questions, please let me know, but otherwise you should have what you need to continue on in the chapter.